show you how to make this Bluey-inspired cardigan. It uses primarily double crochet, but I'm going to show you a few options how to make it a little bit more special with some interesting ribbing around the collar and the wrists and at the bottom, and how to make a granny square little puppy dog's pockets. It is a relatively easy project, so a more intermediate beginner could do this project. I take you through every single step, and there are 2 parts because of that. So if you got interested, please start watching, and let's see how we make this. So for this project, you're going to need quite a bit of yarn. I'm using the Loops and Threads brand yarn because I live in an area where Michael's is my easiest option. So I have chosen for the bingo side, Loops and Threads Impeccable Acrylic in Heather, Apricot, and Baked Clay. And for the Bluey side, we're going to use Glacier, Clear Blue, and this navy one that's called Sapphire. And the other tools you're going to need is a crochet hook. I always size up for garments, especially like this with the granny squares. It can get kind of stiff, so it recommends a 5mm crochet hook, but I'm going to be using a 6. Stitch marker if you like to use those, tape measure, scissors, and then these are some needles to sew in your ends. Okay, so let's get started with, I think I'm going to do the lightest one on the inside. Okay. Yeah. I hate doing the center pull sometimes. So hard. There we go. Okay. Oh, there's the center pull. Oh, that never happens. Okay, so now I have all this mess. Okay, so we're gonna start with a magic ring. Now, if you've never done a magic ring, it can be kind of intimidating. I used to be scared of it, but it's not hard at all. You're gonna hold your 2 fingers out, just like so. You're gonna do an X with the yarn. Then you take your hook, slip it under this first X and grab that one. And I hold on to it with my fingers like that until I can do my chains. So I'll do chain 3. Okay? And now we have a magic loop with chain 3. So we're going to do 6 granny squares, or yeah, grannies, stitches into this guy right here. Okay, with then chain 2. So I have my chain 3 to start, double crochet, and chain 2. Okay. So we're going to begin with this lightest color with a magic circle. So all you need to do is stick your 2 fingers out like that and make, holding the yarn like this, make a big X. Okay? And then you take your crochet hook, slip it under the top right, grabbing the top left of the X, and kind of doing like a swoop and pull motion, and then slip it off of your fingers. Grab the working yarn here and chain 3. So this is what you'll have. And you're going to crochet over the tail. So for the hexagon sweaters, it's really, really simple. It's just going to be granny clusters with a chain 2 in each corner. And so for this tutorial, I'm going to assume you know how to do double crochets and chains. So you're going to make your first granny cluster. Your chain 3 always counts as your first stitch. Make sure you can see me well here. And we're gonna yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. So that's 2, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. So that's our first granny cluster. And we're gonna chain 2 to make a corner, and we do it again. Yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. Same thing again, double crochet, it's a little fiddly at first, and then chain 2. So we're going to do that all the way around, doing 6 of those clusters with a chain 2 between each one. So pause the video and I will see you when you're done at the end of the row. Okay, so here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 granny clusters, and I'm ready to finish off by chaining 2 and joining to the 3rd chain from my chain 3. So 1, 2, 3, pop it in there. Doesn't want to. Okay, with a slip stitch. Okay, now all you have to do is pull your tail nice and tight, and it'll come loose a little bit as you work, but when we sew that in at the end, it'll tighten it up. Okay, so here is the start of our hexagon. We've got a 6-sided shape. All right, so we're going to chain 3 and turn. And we start again with the chain 3 counting as our first stitch. So we're going to double crochet 2 to finish that first granny cluster, chaining 2, and another cluster, now this is our first side. So the granny clusters where they meet on each side do not have any chains between them. So we're not going to chain any, and we're going to go straight into the next corner. Excuse me. And chain 2. And another granny cluster. Okay, so here we have 2 corners with 2 granny clusters on this side now. See, we started with 1 on this one, this row. Now there's 2, so we're getting bigger. And there is no chain between the granny clusters anywhere except for on the sides. So here we're on another side. So we have a granny cluster, no chains, just straight into the next corner. Another granny cluster. Chain 2, because we're doing a corner, and another granny cluster. All right, so keep going just like that all the way around, and I will see you at the end of the row. Okay, so there's that 4th row of the medium blue, and we're gonna switch to the next color now because I have got from the center, I measure in centimeters, I think it's easier, about 9 centimeters. And I want to get to about 15, give or take. And so you can kind of like guesstimate how much 3 rows is going to get you. It's going to get to me about 14.5 maybe or so. So we're gonna switch to the navy blue because I err on the side of a little bit smaller when it comes to the sleeves because you can always add, I'll show you extra in the back and even in the front. So we're gonna do another slip knot. Get ready for that. I'm gonna finish this row off. Tangled mess. By slip stitching into the top of that third chain. And then chain 1 and cut it off. And you just pull it through. It's always so satisfying. I don't know why I like that so much. All right. So we're gonna go again in any corner. Pull the tail to tighten it. Make sure you're holding the working yarn, not the tail when you start. All right. And again, we just chain 3 and start our little clusters all over again. So this you're probably familiar with. If you crochet at all, you've done granny squares, and this is like the simplest kind of sweater construction. If you're just starting to get into making garments and clothing, this is one of the fastest, easiest ways to get started. So again, there's our corner. So we're just gonna start on our sides. And I'm gonna do 2 rows of this and see where that gets me width-wise and hold it up to that sweater that I have that I know fits my son pretty well. Between measurements and holding it up to something that you know fits is kind of the easiest way to make sure that you're making a piece of clothing that's going to fit. When you do what's called blocking, which is for acrylic yarn, you would use a hot steam iron. You steam the sweater and it kind of relaxes the fibers and it relaxes everything, and it makes it a lot less stiff and bulky and fit more like a fabric. But that does make the sweater a little bit looser. But I always err on the side of a little bit bigger with kids' clothes because they can grow into it. It's not like an adult where you're just kind of the size you are. But with kids, it's always good to make it a little bit bigger. They can wear it for a little bit longer, especially something you're making for them, because it's something special. Speaking of kids, I hope you can't hear them too much. They're screaming in the background. All right, so I'm gonna keep going, do 2 more rows, and then I will check in and show you how big it is getting and see if we need to do 3 rows of this dark color, and we'll go from there. Okay, so this is 2 rows of the dark blue. Now, I folded it so that I could kind of see how it's looking, but we are not quite there. So we are at, I don't know, like 11-ish centimeters, right? Because it kind of stretches too. So like 11, almost 12-ish. All right. But again, if you are doing it in the method where you are just holding it up to a sweater that you know fits pretty well. This sweater fits a little bit big on him, so I don't have to go too crazy. But so see, it's nowhere near big enough. So we are going to do, I would say, 2 more rows of the blue, of the dark blue. And then I will show you when that is fully complete. And in the meantime, though, I'm going to sew some of these ends in, just in case you don't know how to do that, just so you see how I do it. Let me move this so you can see a little bit better. Got this fun little test tube of needles. All right, so in my opinion, weaving in your ends as you go is the best self-care you can have in crochet, because future you will thank you. Because there's nothing worse than finishing a project and realizing you have 50,000 ends to weave in. So you're just gonna want to make sure you go in and out, changing direction 3 times at least. Okay, so once you change direction 3 times, you know you're kind of locking the yarn in. So there's 3. I sometimes get a bit obsessive about it and do a little too much, but that's because I make a lot of kids' clothes and they need to be sturdy. So then I pull it a little bit tight, because then when I unpull it, stop pulling it, it'll kind of relax in and pull that end nice and deep into that stitches. So I snip it, my sharp little scissors, and there we go. There's one end woven in. So I will do that to all of my ends, do 2 more rows of the blue, and then show you what it looks like at that point. It's pretty easy though. I know it looks all warbly and wobbly, but that's how it's supposed to be, because then you shape it into a cardigan. So if you're making a size that is smaller than the ones that I am giving the measurements for, the best bet is to just hold it up to either the baby, if you have access to the baby, if it's your baby. But if you're making it as a gift for somebody, you can find measurements online, but the best way is really to just hold it up to something that you know fits the kid, like a onesie or something like that, anything that you know is going to fit them pretty well. Now, you can notice here, problem is that I should have gotten a sweater that it would contrast, because that's so similar it's hard to see, I'm sure. But now you will notice that the chest is going to be, here when it's about 2 more rows, right? So that's going to be a little bit off center of this sweater you're seeing here, and that's okay. What we're really worried about is the sleeve width right now, because we can add rows at the bottom. See the one? We can add rows at the bottom. We can add some ribbing here around the inside of the cardigan collar, so that it kind of looks a little bit more finished. I think that just a granny edge like that looks a little bit unfinished, so I like to add a little bit of ribbing around it anyway, and that's going to add some width as well. But I don't want you to worry too much about that. I'm a bit type A of a person, so I used to get really stressed out when crochet artists online would say like, oh, just wing it. It really is going to be okay. It's going to be fine. First of all, it's just a sweater. We don't need to freak out. But there are ways that we can add a little bit more to the chest here to make it wider and fit around their chest a little better. There are ways to add length as well, because this is obviously really pretty short. So we can add some length here as well with some rows of grannies as well. I hear my kid throwing a bucket. All right. So I will see you when I have finished all of that. All right, so here's both sides ready for the next step. So I've got the sleeves as wide as I want them to be here, but I want the chest and the back to be a little bit larger. So as you can see here on the blue one, I've added an extra row just on the back side. So I've had to kind of decide which is the front, which is the back. You just kind of take a look at it, make sure that if you had any mistakes or anything, it's somewhere where it's not gonna be visible. So you decide which orientation you want it. And so I like this orientation for this one. So I'm gonna add an extra row of the dark orange just here. So let me show you how we do that. And then we're gonna work on making it a little bit longer also in the length here, this direction too. And we're gonna do that before we sew it together up the back, because with this design, I want it two very distinct halves, right? So there's the Bluey side and the bingo side. If you're doing a different style, a different design, you would sew them up the back, sew the sleeves here at the shoulder, and then you would be able to just do round after round after round here at the bottom until you get the length that you want. But because I'm doing two very distinct colors, I'm gonna do the length here and the length here and then sew them together. I just think that's gonna be easier than having to go around halfway, switch yarn color, go around halfway, and then, you know, sew in all those tails. But if you want to do it a different way, you can do it however you like. So I'm going to show you how to get started on doing the back. Just one more row. Let me get my little trusty pencil case here. All right, so I've got my slip knot. I'm going to join to the corner right here. So I've decided, right, that this right here is going to be the back. So I'm going to turn it so that I'm working on it. Put my hook into the corner. And I'm going to do chain 3. Okay, and now I'm only going to do one double crochet. I'm going to try to catch my tail here from when I ended my last row, just to make it a little bit easier for my sewing in later. All right, so I only do one double crochet and then my chain 3 to start it, because you don't want too much bulk. If I did all 3, it would kind of poof it out and it would make it uneven. So I really just need 2 just to make it started. So then, just like regular with no chaining between, do my clusters. Again, trying to catch any tails wherever you have them, just because that's that much less sewing to do if you can kind of grab them. Okay, real quick. And if you want this really a lot wider, you can do more than one row. The kid that this is for, my son, he's a big guy. He's 2, but he's kind of got a big chest. So I want to make sure that there's enough space for him to be comfortable in this. But you can do as many rows as you feel like you need. You can do some on the front of it also, but we're gonna do a ribbed kind of collar type situation, which is gonna make it wider in the front too, so I really don't feel the need to do that. Show you 2 different ways to do that when we get to that point, sort of an easy hack way of doing ribbing, but you'll need to know how to do front post and back post double crochet. Oh no, a factory knot. They're the worst. All right, when I come across one of these, I snip it off. Isn't that awful? And I'm going to pull out this a little bit because I want to make sure I have plenty of yarn to weave those tails in. The factory knots, they give you, what am I supposed to do with that? It's ridiculous. I mean, it's what you get for buying cheap yarn. It is what it is. But, so to tie a knot, I do kind of what's called a surgeon's knot. So it's my start over. how I trust my chickens too. So you go under like normal, like you're just doing a normal knot, and then you do one more. Okay, and then same thing with this. 1, 2. Okay, and then you pull all 4. That's just what I do. Right or wrong, I don't know, but it's a very secure knot. All right, back where we were. The factory knots are just like these hideous little, like, I don't even know what you'd call that, frayed knot. Like that joke, I'm afraid knot. All right. Here we go. And then I've got some tails there from the knot I made, but I can weave those in. That's no problem. And you'll never know it was there. All right. That took a little bit longer than I thought it would. Here we are at the end. All we do is 2 double crochets in the very end. See, because then it kind of makes a nice straight-ish line. It's crochet. It's not going to be the straightest, most perfect thing in the world. If you wanted that, we should do knitting, but that's okay. Crochet's got its own aesthetic. All right, so I'm going to cut that off and then pull that out, and there we go. Now I've got a relatively nice, a little bit wider back. Okay, now, in my jumbled bags here, I like to, as you can see here, I've marked this so that I know that's the back. Just because sometimes when you put it away, it'll, you'll kind of put it away all clumped, and then it can just be a little bit annoying to figure out which one did I make longer. And I know you can figure it out. Of course you can. You're smart. But this way, you don't even have to think about it. Okay. It's funny, I did blue on the orange and orange on the blue. All right. That might annoy my OCD later. I might have to fix it. Okay. So now I am ready to make a little bit more length this way. So let me scrooch my yarns up out of the way. Now, I think I want to start the pattern over. So I'm going to do the lightest blue, the medium blue, and then the dark blue. And I'm going to pause for just a second. Okay. So I switched it up. Sorry about the quick cut there. I'm going to do just a chain 3. I think it looks too bulky if I do 2. If I do a chain 3 and the double crochet. So I'm going to do chain 3 and then a granny cluster in the corner space there. Again, this is only because I added that extra row, that things are a little bit wonky. Yeah, I think I like that better. Okay. It's just about making sure that it kind of lays flat the way that you want it. So we are going to just go all the way across, just like we have been, all across. And then we get to the end, I will show you how to finish the row and then start the next one and keep going back and forth. All right, so here I am at the end of the row. All I have left is this last corner here. So all I'm gonna do is 1 double crochet into there. Now, I have this, let me make sure you can see, got this chain 3 right here and a double crochet here at the end. So basically, when you start the next row, what you're gonna do is you're gonna chain 3 and turn your work, okay? And now we have this space right here, so we can do 2. So we're just gonna do 2 on this side. So it goes 1 and then 2, and the next row will be 1 and then 2. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to keep showing you what it looks like, but you just don't want to add too much bulk. You don't want it to kind of sway out like that. So the goal is to kind of create these, you know, the space here, but on the ends it's always either, you know, the chain 3 and a double crochet on this end. You're going to end here with 2 double crochets right into this space here. So if you did 1 in the first, you know, on the one side, you do 1 on that side. If you did 2, you do 2. And then you're going to alternate back and forth. The next row, we will start with just a chain 3. So let me get us over there. With sweaters like this, it's kind of a bit more like you just kind of roll with the punches. After I put this tutorial up, I might do another sweater that's sort of a bluey vibe again, but a little bit more refined. I don't actually typically love the granny square sweaters. They're okay, I guess. It's a certain aesthetic, right? So if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you're gonna think that it's like, you know, some hideous crochet Afghan that your great-grandmother made that's really, you know, scratchy and awful. I know I have those. My great-grandmother was an amazing crocheter. I have some really cool stuff of hers that my mom wore, and then I wore, and now my daughter is wearing. Some really funky stuff, like from the 70s too, like lime green vests and berets and stuff. Really cool. Maybe I will show some of that sometime if anybody wanted to see it. I don't know if anybody's actually going to watch this video. Kind of doubt it. But, all right, so here we are at the end. And so I've got this space here from where I had my chain 3 right next to my granny cluster. So all I'm going to do is do 2 double crochets right into there. Okay, and then I chain 3, turn my work, and all I'm going to do is then go right straight into here, my next space next to it with a granny cluster, and work all the way back around, all the way down, ending with 1 single crochet, 1 single double crochet, goodness gracious, right into the end here. And then you'll just repeat that over and over again. So the next row, you'll do a chain next to a double crochet. So it goes 1, 2, right? So 1, and then 2, and then 1, over and over and over until you get how long you want. So I'm going to let you pause it, get a little bit more length, and I will catch up with you. Hopefully that's clear at the end of the lengthening. Okay, so I've come to the end of the 3 rows that I wanted to do of the tan color. So I did my last double crochet just in between this double crochet and the chain 3 of the previous row. So I just slip my hook right between them and finish it off. Now I'm going to switch colors. So I'm going to chain 1, take my scissors, cut it off. They're so sharp. They're brand new. I have to watch myself with them. All right, and then I pull it out. All right, and now I'm going to switch to the peach color. Do another slip knot. Okay, now flip it over. Now this row I had just 1 here, so I just have my 1 double crochet right there. So I'm gonna put my hook right in between that space, between the double crochet and the first cluster. And now I chain 3, and this row is gonna start with 2 because the last row started with 1. So I'm gonna go in, try to catch my tail a little bit, do 1 double crochet. So I've got my chain 3, my double crochet, and I just keep going just like I have been with my clusters all the way across, and ending of course with 2 double crochets right into this little space right here that I have right there. Okay, and then I'm going to keep going. So this is going to have 4 rows of the peach because that's what I had here, and then I'm going to do 4 rows of the dark orange and see where that gets me lengthwise. All right, so here we go. I have added a few more rows. I've added 3 rows of each, actually. That's what I ended up doing. As I was working on it, I decided I wanted to just do 3 rows of each because I'm going to add a little bit of ribbing at the bottom here now. I'm going to do a little bit just down here at the bottom. That's going to kind of cinch in the sweater a little bit when he's wearing it. I think it gives it a little bit more tasteful of a look, I guess you could call it. All right, so here's my sweater. It's so fuzzy. I've been knitting a scarf for my sister-in-law, and this has been in my work in progress tote bag, getting covered in fuzz from the scarf I'm making for her. It's like a fluffy yarn I'm using for her. So excuse the mess there. All right, so we're gonna line up armpit to armpit. Make sure you can actually see that. And then, as you can see, I've got a decent length here. I've got just about, an inch, inch and a half I want to add for ribbing. Here's the bottom of it. Let me zoom out a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to show you how to do one way now, and then I'll show you a different way on the blue one, just so you have an idea of different options. But I would highly suggest doing the same type of ribbing on all of it. So we're going to do the ribbing kind of an interesting way. Actually, do I even want to do it now? Yes, I do. Okay, so here we are at the very end of the last row that I did. So what we are going to do is we are going to chain as many as we need to make it the length of the ribbing that we want. So here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7, because 1 is going to be for turning. So we are going to, we're going to do kind of a snazzy way of doing this. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and hopefully you can see it well enough. Maybe you can zoom in a little bit more if I can. Okay. So I have 7 chains on my hook right now. We're going to go in to the second chain from the hook. Sorry, I always do that last one a little too tight. Okay, with a single crochet. So that's just yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2. Actually, wait a second. If you have the ability to go to a hook just half a millimeter or a millimeter smaller, I would recommend it. Sorry, unprofessional crochet instruction here. So I'm going to switch to a slightly smaller hook, just a little bit. It's going to give it a little bit more squeeze in. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to single crochet into the second loop there, and then just single crochet all the way down. Now this is a tricky way to do ribbing. This may be a bit advanced if you're not super comfortable with crochet. I will show you a different technique on the blue in just a second that is quite a bit easier and quite a bit faster. So don't despair if you start to think, oh my God, what is this lady doing? I can't do that. All right, so we're gonna make sure we count our stitches too, so I don't drop any. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now here's where it gets tricky. We are going to slip stitch into the first stitch and then slip stitch into the stitch after. Okay, and then turn it over. Now making sure that we're not going into those, make sure you can actually see what I'm doing. Good Lord, Kate. I hope I can you actually saw any of that. We're gonna skip those first 2 slip stitches and we're gonna go into the back loop of the one right after those first 2. So let me make sure you can actually see, hopefully. So we're skipping, we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches, we know. The back loop is the back V right here. So if you're looking at the work, there's a V. The back loop is the one farther away from you. So we're going to work straight into there with single crochets all the way up this row. Now, if this seems psychotic and if this seems like too much for you, don't worry. Maybe just like watch if you feel like it, or don't. What am I saying? Don't watch if you don't like it. But this is a really, really kind of refined, as refined as I get, way of doing. Make sure you can actually see anything I'm doing. Ribbing. So make sure you're counting, especially when you're just kind of getting used to it. Now, for this last stitch here, I go into both loops. That's going to give a little bit more solid of a bottom. Okay, and then chain 1 and turn. Okay, now into the back, into both loops, because this first one and last one, we want to give it just a little bit more stability by going into both, but then switching to back loops again. So that's 1, and then this is 2 stitches, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The last one can be a little tricky to find. That's why you want to always make sure you're counting. Now, here we are again at the bottom. This one, if you can kind of see, already has some stuff happening with it. That one's already been used. This one right here. So we're gonna go into this first stitch next to our ribbing, do a slip stitch and another slip stitch and turn. Now, what this is accomplishing, doing those 2 crazy little slip stitches, if you can see, when we go up and when we go down, so that's a row of single crochet and then a row of single crochet down, up and down. We need, on this part, as we're kind of cruising along on the bottom, we need to keep things moving down that way, right? So 2 rows of single crochet are going to take up 2 stitches. So we're kind of locking it down and keeping the crochet moving down, 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 down. I hope that makes sense. It's a little tricky. It took me a while to understand this technique, to even like this technique. Okay, so we have our 2 slip stitches. We're gonna turn our work. We're gonna skip those first 2 slip stitches, and we are going to single crochet in the back loop only. Going back up the row. 2, 3,
Put scissors.
4. Gosh. 5. Hang on 1 second. Let me finish this row. And then again into both loops at the top. And then chain 1. Okay, and hang on 1 second. My daughter wants some water. Okay, and we're back. I hope any of this is making sense. So I have chained 1. Let me actually zoom in again. I zoomed out because I was like, oh my god, I think this is crazy, but I think you can actually see better zoomed in. All right, so I've chained 1. Now I turn my work again, and I'm going to work into both loops because we're at the end, and then back loops the rest of the way down. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the last one. It'd be a little tricky to find. I find if you just kind of like scoot your hook down in there, it can pull it up. Because like it's a hook, right? You can scoop things up with it. Okay, now moving on. Keeping going. Another slip stitch here. And second slip stitch. And turn. And again, skipping those first 2 slip stitches and going right into the back loop of our first chain here. It can help sometimes if you just keep counting. So go from the start. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I know that's where I need to go into. I still do that. I've done a lot of things ribbed like this, and I still count. 2, 3, 4, 5, and because we're at the end, I'm going to go into both loops. 6, chain 1, and turn. Okay, and because this is the first one again, we always do both loops. It's going to give a more kind of solid appearance here. If you don't do it into both loops, it can kind of have more of a notched look. Let me grab something I can show you that has it. This is actually that scarf I was talking about for my sister-in-law that I knit the scarf and then did a crochet ribbing. So if you can kind of tell, I didn't go into the back loop for this one. I'm sorry, I didn't go into both loops. I only went into the back loop, and it kind of has a bit more of a boom, 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 wavy, bumpy look. But that's the look I was going for that. But for this, I want it a little bit more straight and even and nice.
Mom, what did you? More peppers?
Yes, you can have more bell peppers.
I don't eat peppers.
I'm lucky I've got the kid that wants to snack on bell peppers. All right, so now into the back loop. So that's the second stitch, third stitch, fourth stitch, fifth, and sixth. Okay, and again, we are going to slip stitch into the next two. And then turn our work. And keep going back and forth, just like that, all the way across.
That's a baby bed.
I'll do a few more. Just a second. There you go. Sorry, snack break. All right. So let me do one more just so you can see it, just in case. If this is boring and awful, just fast forward. We'll get through this in just a second. So we're gonna skip those first two slip stitches and going into the back loop of our first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then for the last one, always remember to go through both. You don't have to, but you have to do the same every time, if that makes sense. You don't have to go through both. You can just do the back loop, but you have to sort of pick one and go for it. Otherwise, it'll look really janky. All right, so into both, because I'm at the very end here. Okay, 1, 2, and the last one here, 6. And again, slip stitching into the next two, and then turning and keeping on going. Like I said, this is kind of the fancier way. Fancy, as if anything I do is fancy, but it really looks a lot nicer than the other way, I think. Not that it, is that big of a difference. Plus, for a sweater like this, you can kind of just do whatever you like, but this is my preference, and I used to hate doing this a lot. I really hated it. But I have grown to enjoy it with practice. So if you hate it, don't do it. Don't do stuff you hate. All right, so I'm gonna keep going and do this whole bit, because it's actually really not that much. It goes faster than you think it's going to. At first you think, my God, this is like a Sisyphean task, it's never gonna end. But it goes faster than you think. I'm already, I don't know, almost a quarter of the way done. Okay, so I'm gonna finish this, and then I'm going to add the length to my blue guy here and do the ribbing on the bottom. And then we're gonna get to assembling. Okay, so I realized I should actually show you a little bit more here at the end. I don't want to leave you high and dry. So here I have come to just about the end of the ribbing. It didn't take me long. I don't know, like 10-15 minutes. But as you can see, let me zoom out a little bit. It kind of gives it this nice little cinched in look. So it's gonna kind of, give it more of a in kind of a look. Because for a little boy sweater, I just thought it'd be cuter than having it just go straight down. Kind of like a duster. If anybody here else is millennial, remembers dusters that were just kind of these long, straight sweaters that we all wore. They're awful, but I'm sure they'll be back in style very soon. Okay, so here we go. I have got, here's the bottom, okay? I've done a row here. I am on my down swing here, and as you can see, I've got this funky little nubbin here. This was where I had, I guess that's my chain 3 starting from the previous row. So I need to lock this down and then just go straight back up. So I think all I need to go, you know, if you kind of just like look at it, obviously you're looking at it, but I think one more row will probably do me, but maybe 2. Let's see. Let's see what we do. Again, very unprofessional crochet instruction here, but here we go. So I have come down, and so I'm working right here. This is my last 6th little stitch, but uh-oh, I have nowhere to slip stitch into. So what am I gonna do? I'm just gonna slip stitch right into this space right here. I think I'm just gonna do 1 slip stitch because I think that's gonna get me as far as I need to go. If you think that it's gonna need to do an up and a down, do 2. I think just 1 up might do it for me. We shall see. But let's do it together and I can show you what you can do if you realize you need to do more. So I've only done 1 slip stitch, so that's all I need to skip. So I'm going into the back loop. Again, just like before, do the whole row up. Not so hard.
Mommy?
And then I'm gonna do the next side of the sweater. And I'll show you the other way of doing ribbing so that if you are thinking, this is too much, this is a beginner friendly crochet thing. We don't need to do craziness. So I think that that looks pretty darn good.
Mom, good.
So I think that that's nice and straight. The goal is just to have it nice and kind of even straight as you can across. Because remember, if this is the back, it's going to be connected to the other side. So we've got some leeway there. If this is the front, we're going to do ribbing the other direction coming off of this. So if it's just the tiniest bit wonky, it's not a big deal. Again, with crochet, it's been really good for teaching me to just like calm down and not be so stressed out about if things are like absolutely perfect, because there's a lot of leeway in crochet. All right, so there's that finished. It's really not that bad, I promise. It's not that scary, but I'm gonna go add the length to my blue one, and then I'm gonna show you a different way to do ribbing as well. I probably won't show you on this one because the blue is like really hard to see. So I'll do a little sample of something with a color that's easier to see, just so you can see what your other options are, if you don't feel like being quite so crazy. All right, so I'll see you in just a minute, but keep going. I believe in you. You can do it. It's fiddly, but you just always have to remember you're smart, right? Of course you are. So your brain is gonna understand it before your hands are gonna understand it. Your brain is smarter than your hands. So just be patient with yourself and let your hands catch up to your brain, understanding the concept of it, and it's gonna feel fiddly and awkward, but you will get there. All right. Okay, so here is another way to do the ribbing. It's a lot easier. It's not quite as nice of a look. It's kind of a little bit more quick and dirty, but it gets the job done, and it's not too bad, and it's really quick. So I've made just like a tiny little itty bitty sample here to show you. So imagining, if you will, that this is the bottom of your work where we've done this ribbing. And this is, your last row of granny clusters. What you're going to do is you're going to chain 3 like I've done here, and you're going to work a double crochet across the whole thing. So into that first spot there, all the way across. And this does work best if you have an odd number. It just, it'll look a little bit more perfect if you have an odd number, but I guarantee you if you have an even number, it's gonna be okay. Nobody's gonna notice that it's not starting and ending with the same type of rib direction. If somebody notices, that's crazy. So we're just doing our double crochets all the way across. And I mean, you could stop there. Like if you just wanted that to be your border, that is totally fine. But I think it looks nice with ribbing. Okay, so here we have double crochet all the way across. And we're going to chain 3, like we always do, and turn. Now, here's where it gets a little bit confusing. We're gonna do front post and back post double crochets. So that means that we are, instead of crocheting into here where we always crochet, we're going to crochet around the post of the stitch. So yarn over, we're going to do front post first, pull through 2, pull through 2. See, that kind of pops it out. Now, back post, yarn over, go under, and sort of pull it up around the back of that post. So that's a back post. Then a front post, again, goes through kind of like that. I'm gonna go a little bit slow. I assume you might know how to do this. Front post, back post. It is, just like the other one, fiddly at first. Now, just like with the other ribbing, it's best to do this with a little bit smaller of a hook if you can. If you don't have it, that's fine. Don't buy one unless you want to, but just going back and forth, front post, back post. See how it kind of catches the back of it? So the little bit smaller crochet hook is going to kind of make it be a little bit more tight. A little more professional looking, a little bit nicer looking, but I'm using the same one as before just so that it's actually a little bit looser so you can kind of see a little bit better. Now, ending here on the front post. Okay, so it's already starting to kind of look like ribbing, right? And then we're gonna chain 3 again. Turn our work. Now, we basically just want to follow the same pattern and do it again. So we're gonna do, oh wait, yeah. How did I mess this up? Oh, that's because that's the chain one. Front post. And then back post. It gets easier as you go. And then front post. Back post. Just keeping going. So do front post crochets to the front posts, back post, crochets to the back posts. And on and on and on. And then post. And then one last back post there. Okay, so as you can see, might not be the prettiest in the world, but it is ribbing, right? So it's got kind of the same vibe. It's got the same stretchiness, but if you compare it, like imagine this is what was down there. It's fine. It looks nice, especially if you're using a little bit smaller crochet hook. It's gonna be a lot less messy looking, a lot less raggedy. But I think that looks a lot nicer, so that's what I did. And there are a million tutorials on front post, back post crochets and things like that online, so I won't go too much into detail, but that's just how you do that kind of a ribbing. All right, now onward. I have got my blue side pretty much done. Woo. And we're gonna do the same thing to the orange side, the bingo side. All right. So we're gonna begin by adding length to the sleeve. So as you can see here, I have done a little bit more length here. So I have added 2 rows of the light and then 2 rows of the medium. And then I have done, I don't know if you can see it, but I did a row of the dark and then a row of the dark where there's just 2 double crochets in my granny cluster. That's gonna help cinch it in a little bit. And then we're gonna do our beautiful ribbing at the end. All right, so let's get started on this guy here. And I did do 1 decrease with the granny squares right here. And I'm gonna show you exactly how I did that. So let's get started on the sleeve. Okay, so first things first, you can see I don't take my own advice and I don't sew in my tails as I go. Future me is gonna hate me for that, but that's okay. So first thing we need to do is we are going to tidy up the back here with a row of single crochet, and then we're going to sew together this part right here, the shoulder and the top of the arm, so that we have a sleeve to make longer. Okay, so I've got my slip knot and wait. So this is the front, this is the back. So we're going to attach our yarn. It's a little tricky to find a spot. Just try to be as close to the bottom as possible. Okay, tighten it up. All right, now the reason we're doing this is so that first of all we have something kind of clean and tidy to look at, right? And if we were later, when we go to sew the back together, we want, we need this part that we've added to have sort of something to sew, so stitches that are easier to sew. And this is, you could sew it, but it would look raggedy. It would look awful. So we are just going to do a line of single crochets up and then over. We'll probably have to do one more row right before we sew the back together, just so that this isn't so raggedy, but we'll get there when we get there. So let's begin with just single crochet. So attach. All right. So one quick note too, right before we start, I almost forgot. You want to have the same number of stitches on both sides up the back. It's just so that it's nice and even and everything looks the same and everything's the exact same length. So I will either make a notepad in my phone or just write down. So the blue one I've already done. Up the back has 58 stitches up the back. So write it down, because you will thank yourself later for writing these things down, because I just had to go back and recount mine because I forgot to write it down. But so I wrote that down, and then let me, before I forget, there are going to be 22 stitches in sleeve around. So I know that there are also, with my memory, 22 stitches around the sleeve, because you want them to be the same. All right, so we are just going to start one, oh no, just single crochet, 2, 5, just kind of wiggling your hook in there to make it get through. 6, 7, 8. All right, now for each double crochet / chain 3, depending which I have, I want to make 2 single crochets fit in there, because that's what worked for the blue, and I think that's what's going to work here. So I'm at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, maybe do 24 here. See, it's kind of tricky. 4, 25. Okay, and then 26. Now I can count then how many are here, because this is the tricky part. This here, making this look nice and not bunchy and weird. So I can count the rest of my stitches here and make sure that it's going to add up to 58. And if I messed up, excuse me, oh man, my daughter started preschool a few months ago, and I'm just like constantly some level of sick. All right, so if I messed up here and I needed to do more or less stitches in here to add up to 58, now is the time to do it before I've finished this whole row, because I do that quite often. So let me count how many stitches I have left. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 58. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to finish this up. I've got 58 if I do every single one, and I will see you at the end. Okay. So here I am, 58 stitches in. And now we need to do a row of single crochet. Let me move that. Across here, connecting these two, and then I'm going to keep going down. All right, so let me show you what that looks like. That's just to kind of clean it up, get it kind of cinched together. So we're going to do single crochets down. Okay, so just like for the back, we want the front to have the same number of stitches on both sides so that it's even. So I went and counted. I have 62 stitches on the front here. I've done the ribbing here for the front as well, all the way up and then around the back. So 62 stitches across the front means that I'm gonna need, oh, let's say like 2 to turn that corner here, and then 2 to kind of join these. So I have done 2 single crochets over, just to kind of set myself up for success later. And I'm going to cut my yarn, give myself a little, I always do double the length. I mean, you would never need that much, but just in case. So I am now going to sew together the sleeve. So I did my 2 crochets, single crochets kind of up around, and chain 1, get out a needle. Okay. Now, right now, I have the right side of my work out, but I want to make it so that I have the right sides together. So that's a little bit, I wouldn't say tricky, but just make sure you don't mess it up. Okay. And that's just so that, I just threaded that darn thing. I'm not very good at threading needles. They have these big eye needles and things you can buy, but I have what I have. This came for free with an old crochet needle set I had. Okay, so we've got the right side and right. Yeah, I think so. Okay, I should really just go to bed. We are going to sew it together. Now, if you can see, I hope that there are sort of the V's of the sweater, right? Let me get it all. You can use stitch markers to line this up if you want to. I don't typically do that, but that's just me. All right, so get my needle sort of over there. So hopefully you can see pretty well. There is the inner V and the outer V on each one. So I want to go to the inner V on both sides. Okay. And then again, next 2 stitches next to each other, inner V. Make sure you don't split the yarn. Inner V. Inner V, inner V. And just go the whole way down. And that's going to give us a nice look. So that you really can't even see where it was sewn. Okay. Make sure you don't skip any if you can. Again, it's crochet. There's a lot of grace. All right, so I'm going to do that all the way down.